बोलिए लाडली लाल की जय। श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय। आनंद मानंद कर प्रसन्नम प्रेम स्वरूपम ब्रज भावयुक्तम योगीन्द्रमीड्यम भवरोग वैद्यम गुरुं कृपालुं प्रणमामि नित्यम्। चेतो दर्पण मार्जनम् भवमहा दावाग्नि निर्वापणम् श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणम् विद्यावधू जीवनम् आनन्दाम्बुधिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतास्वादनम् सर्वात्मस्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्ण संकीर्तनम्। नमः कमलना भाय नमः कमल मालिने नमः कमल पादाय नमस्ते कमलेक्षण यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तग्वं ह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। Dear devotees of God, dear disciples of Gurudev, let's chant the glories of our Master, Guru Kripalur Mam Sharanam Vandeham Sadguru Charanam. Guru Kripalur Mam Sharanam Vandeham Sadguru Charanam.
Guru Kripalur Mam Sharanam Vandeham Sadguru Charanam.
Guru Kripalur Mam Sharanam Vandeham Sadguru Charanam.
Guru Kripalur Mam Sharanam Vandeham Sadguru Charanam.
Guru Charanam Sadguru Charanam Vandeham Sadguru सद्गुरु चरणं
गुरुचरणं सद्गुरुचरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
गुरुः कृपालुर्मम शरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
गुरु कृपालुर्मम शरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
मङ्गलमपि मङ्गलकरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
मङ्गलमपि मङ्गलकरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
मङ्गलमपि मङ्गलकरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
मङ्गलमपि मङ्गलकरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणम्
अशरण शरणं अशरण शरणं गुरुचरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणम्
अशरण शरणं गुरुचरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणम्
राधा कृष्ण प्रेम भरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
राधा कृष्ण प्रेम भरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
गुरुः कृपालुर्मम शरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
गुरु कृपालुर्मम शरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
मायामोह जालहरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
मायामोहजालहरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
मायामोहजालहरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
मायामोहजालहरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं कृपालुर्मम शरणं वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं
वन्देऽहं सद्गुरुचरणं।
बोलिए श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की
जय।
जगत गुरु तम श्री कृपालु महाप्रभु की जय। श्री भक्ति धाम की जय। In the early 1980s, the greatest grace of God entered my life in the form of Jagatguru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj's divine teachings. Before these teachings entered my life, my inner life was like a jigsaw puzzle with hundreds of pieces scattered here and there. Nothing made sense. One piece asked, "Who am I?" Another asked, "What am I here for?" Another one was, "What is the purpose of this life?" Another one said, "Where are you going? What is the point in all this?" So many pieces of the puzzle. But after I heard Sri Maharajji's teachings, my life became perfect. It was as if someone came in, took all those pieces, and very easily put them where they fit. So now a beautiful picture emerged. That was my life now. The world was now beautiful. I belonged. For the first time. But my life would become even more perfect. I was commanded to go to Mangar. I didn't know Jagatguru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj, who he was. I only knew his teachings. I didn't know Mangar. I didn't know such a place existed. I didn't know Uttar Pradesh, never having been there. Having left India at the age of 13, now it was 11, 12 years later, I had not gone back. And all of a sudden, it was as if someone told me, "Let go of your silly plans. They're not good. Follow my plan. I have the best plan for you." Sri Maharajji internally guided me, inspired me, commanded me to go to Mangar, and I obeyed. And then magic happened. I went to Mangar, and when I had darshan of Sri Maharajji, all my misconceptions regarding a saint, a guru, disappeared. I had thought that a guru is someone who sits at a very high level, on high pedestal, and we look at him like this. Where is he? And he looks down at us. "Oh, you are just ordinary mortals." That he would just dismiss people, and he would think very, very low of everyone because he's so great. But Sri Maharajji was completely the opposite. He was extremely humble, very friendly. He had an amazing sense of humor. His laughter was very infectious. I, who was not easily impressed, was already impressed through his teachings. Now when I saw the source of that knowledge, I used to pinch myself. Is it true? I am here in this divine village, and this is God walking on earth, and I am here, I'm looking at him, and he is talking to me. Is this real? I literally pinched myself many times. So Sri Maharajji was extremely friendly. He did not make me feel that I had come to a strange place, a new place, and that I was a stranger there, or that he was a stranger to me. In fact, he said to me, "Where were you for so long?" "I was waiting." And there was such truth in his voice, there was so much depth in it, that I only could respond by crying. That where was I indeed? And where was he? I did not know of him so far. And all of a sudden I felt that I knew him. I have known him in another lifetime. I knew him in the previous life. And this village, it is mine. It's mine. I love this village. I love Mangar, which we know as Bhakti Dham. Maharaji's birthplace. I fell in love with Mangar. And the best part of Mangar was the Angan, courtyard. Such memories were made in the Angan. There were only 40, 50 of us living in the ashram at that time. Can you imagine? Now there are 500, 600 or 700 right now in every ashram. 40, 50 of us, no more. And it felt like we were just one big family, protected by and guided by our parents, our dearest Amma and Maharaji. Maharaji gave a lot of apnapan, a lot of closeness. It's unheard of closeness, unheard of apnapan. It's never before, never again. It seems like that. The Angan was the place where we ate. Shri Maharaji would be sitting there, we would be eating. Just 40, 50 of us. Angan was the place where we celebrated major festivals like Ram Navami. One particular Ram Navami, that memory of that is very dear to me. Shri Maharaji, bare-bodied, curly hair, looking so divinely beautiful, performing arti to baby Ram. And I remember what I was thinking at that time. I was thinking, oh, there is the Lord performing arti to the Lord. Apun bhakti kare apu murari. He's practicing devotion to himself. Shri Maharaji would sit in the Angan many times a day, but our favorite time, and I think I can speak for others, our favorite time was nighttime, before Shri Maharaji retired for the night. We loved to be there. Now we had no more seva to do. Shri Maharaji had told myself and 9 others who were studying to be pracharaks, 10 hours, study 10 hours a day. All right, now that time had passed and now there's no more studying to do. No one had any seva to do. Everybody's going to go to sleep after Shri Maharaji goes to sleep. And that was a beautiful time. And each and every one of us had this thought, and that is, oh time, stand still please. We're going to have these magical moments with our Gurudev. And Shri Maharaji made us laugh, he made us cry, he taught us so much. He distributed sweets at times peanuts, at times homemade sweets, some fruits, seasonal fruits. We were, after all, his children. Even if he left Mangar for 1 hour, coming back, he would say to the driver, the devotee who was driving him, "Chalo bachon ke liye kuch le chalte hain. Let's get something for the kids." That is how he referred to us. Shri Maharaji would make the driver stop the car in the marketplace, and he would say, okay, buy peanuts or buy this or buy that. And then when he came home, we would see these big sacks, and Maharaji would say, "Aa jao." We would get guavas. And Maharaji was so loving, he paid attention to each and every detail. He would keep in mind that someone's teeth are not so strong. So if someone had bad teeth, he would give them a very soft guava, amrud. To the young ones, he would give green fruits. Now, I fit in that category at that time. So when I went and was about to receive the guava, Sri Maharaji was just going to give me a green guava. I said, Maharaji, may I have the yellow one, the ripe one? And he laughed. He said, "That tereki," as if to say, you're old in your young age. You want a soft guava. The older ones would get the soft guavas. The younger ones would get the green guavas. Sri Maharaji would give peanuts, and a vivid memory of us eating peanuts in the Angan, sitting before Sri Maharaji. We would extend our, we would go like this with our shawl or with sari, and Maharaji would put lots of peanuts in there, lots. Not just one handful, and his hands so big and beautiful, but maybe 2 handfuls, a lot of peanuts. And we would then sit down in front of Sri Maharaji at his lotus feet, and Maharaji would be watching Maharaji, never averting our gaze, always looking at Maharaji, but shelling those peanuts and eating them. And there'll be crunch, crunch, crunch sound all over. Maharaji tolerated us. He fed us like a mother. One night I should say, there was a devotee who came in a little bit late, and all of us had received gulaiya ka laddu, made of Rice Krispies and jaggery, good. And like big laddus, not a small one, maha laddu. Everyone got one, and there was a devotee who came later, and again, Maharaji being so loving towards everyone, Maharaji noticed, and Maharaji said to the devotee who had been giving these laddus, he said, "He has come, give it to him." So he was now given the laddu. But then he asked a question, and Maharaji had fun with that question. The devotee asked, "Ye khana hai kya? Do I have to eat it?" And Maharaji didn't miss anything. He said, "Arey, aur kya karoge laddu ke saath? Isko odhoge, pehnoge, iske saath kheloge, kya karoge? What else will you do with the laddu? You must eat it. The laddu is an edible thing. You must eat it." Wrong question, he said. You should have asked, do I have to eat it right now, or can I keep it for later? Can I eat half of it and leave half of it till later? And Maharaji came up with many such questions. And then Sri Maharaji turned to all of us, and Maharaji is making us laugh so much. He had a way with words, he had a way with his humor. We were all laughing. And Sri Maharaji said, "All of you speak wrong." Again, Akbar asked, "Birbal, kya kar rahe ho? What are you doing?" Birbal said nothing, so Akbar went on his way. A couple of weeks later, Birbal came up with a list of blind people. He gave it to Akbar. Akbar started reading. He didn't go far. He looked at the first name. It was Akbar. Akbar said, "What is the meaning of this? I'm not blind. Forgive me, my lord, but you saw me digging a trench outside the palace, and you asked me, 'What are you doing?' I thought, God forbid, I thought that you had gone blind." So the right question would have been, why are you digging the trench? Or how long have you been digging the trench? Not, what are you doing? Sri Maharaji made us aware of this, that when we speak wrongly most of the times. And Maharaji used to say, "Kam bolo," speak little. He used to say, as long as you're silent, the other person looking at you may think you're very intelligent. He has a doubt, you're very intelligent. But when you speak, you say so many things so wrongly that you remove all doubt. Then the person knows, no, there's no intelligence there. So speak little, he would say. Bahut baatein mat karo. But even though Maharaji was making us laugh, he was teaching us lessons. Those lessons have stayed with me to this day. They're in my subconscious mind and also in my conscious mind. Sometimes something comes up from my subconscious mind and I think, oh, yes, Maharaji had said that. That's why I know this. In the Angan, Sri Maharaji gave us morsels of divine knowledge. The very beautiful Sanskrit verse by Adi Shankaracharya, Yamuna Nikat, that all the devotees, all the disciples of Sri Maharaji know now. Sri Maharaji taught us that in the 80s. I believe it was 1984. Shri Maharaj taught us that. And he taught us the pronunciation. He corrected our mistakes. And I remember very clearly, Shri Maharaj said, the word namat, and it appears 3 times in Yamuna Nikat, you bow your head. So to this day, whoever heard that bows their head. Because you hear Maharaj saying, bow your head at namat. Then we were not saying the Sanskrit properly. I was a student, I did not know any Sanskrit. And Shri Maharaj would say to all of us, I'm hearing each and every one of you separately. Individually, I'm listening to all of you, and you're not saying this properly. So say it with great force. Say it with confidence, because you are children of a great God. तुम भगवान की संतान हो. जोर से बोलो, Shri Maharaj would say. So he gave us morsels of divine wisdom. Shri Maharaj taught us 2 shloks in that angan. And those shloks I will never forget. They are so beautiful. Vrajantim swavrindavane nityakalam mukundena sakam vidhayam kamalam samamikshamananukampa katakshaih shriyam chintaye sachidanand rupam. That's one. And sadaradhika nam jihvagratasyat sadaradhika rupamakshagra astam shrutau radhika kirtirantah swabhave gunaradhikaya shriya etadihe. They are imprinted in the brain. Just as Shri Maharaj fed us morsels of divine knowledge, he fed us morsels of food also. Again, one of the very vivid and loving memories I have of that time is Maharaj squatting on the floor of the angan and feeding me spoonfuls of rice. How do you forget something like that? You cannot. And you should not. Very sweet memories were created in that angan. Living in Shri Maharaj's association for 2 years, I noticed over time so many wonderful qualities of Shri Maharaj, divine qualities, but qualities that we can all learn from. Shri Maharaj was always before his time. And he did not follow conventions. If convention did not make sense, he did not follow it. It didn't matter that all the people in the world were doing things one way. He did it his way, if what everybody was doing was not making sense. Shri Maharaj did something that a lot of people don't do in the world, and that is he gave very young people a chance. He gave them sevas, very great sevas, very important sevas. People in the world will say, you are so young, you don't know how to do this job, you need experience. But how do I get experience? Maharaj didn't believe in that. He said, let me give you the seva, you learn by doing it. That is what he did. There was a 14-year-old boy at that time, and Shri Maharaj said, you will cook for everyone, you'll be the main cook. And the ladies were looking at Shri Maharaj. They've been cooking all their lives. And Maharaj said, looking at them, they will be your helpers. It doesn't make sense, does it? There's no logic in it. But we cannot understand saintly logic. We cannot understand that. So many years later, I asked this boy, who is now an adult, he's probably 50 years old now, I asked him, did you know how to cook? I was so impressed. You knew how to cook at 14. He said, Didi, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't even know how to boil water. I had never gone into the kitchen. And he only had brothers, and his mother was there to cook, so he had never entered the kitchen except to eat. And he said, Maharaji gave me that seva. And I said, what did you do? How did you do it? He said, I just learned. Then he became an expert. Many years later, when our first charitable hospital was constructed, and the first one is in Mangar, Sri Maharaji gave a young lady, a very, very young girl, the responsibility of the hospital. You will run this hospital. The doctors who are twice your age, they will report to you. You will run this hospital. The administrator. Then the 3 educational institutes came into being, and they have been flourishing, and they have been improving and improving. Sri Maharaji has inspired everyone so much through those schools also. And so Maharaji put a very young girl in charge of those schools. And what she did was, she was empowered by Maharaji. And these young people, they became very confident because Maharaji put his faith in them. He told them, I have faith in you. You can do this. So they excelled in what they were doing. And Maharaji empowered women. He empowered girls. He taught females, do not be afraid. Don't think that you are weak. You are very strong. Don't think that you're weak. A young girl said to Maharaji, Maharaji, I'm going on the train all alone. I'm afraid. Maharaji said to her, listen, when you came to the world, you came all alone, didn't you? When you will leave the world, you'll have to go alone. Nobody will go with you because the Atma travels alone. So, have no fear. Travel alone on the train. Nothing to fear. What Maharaji did not tell her was that I will be taking care of you. I will protect you all the way. Throughout your journey, I'll be with you. He couldn't say that because he would never disclose that. Our schools in Kunda, which is the town next to Mangar, 4 or 5 miles away, there are 3 wonderful educational institutes, public, I should say the primary school, then the secondary school, then the college, going all the way to MA now. Sri Maharaji had told the devotees, now this school is under my name. My name is connected to these schools, and so you must strive for excellence. And these schools, if anyone, when anyone visits them, they are amazed at the level of education being given to these girls who come from very impoverished families. Sri Maharaji said that if you educate a girl, you have educated the whole family. And so he was very particular about educating the girl child. Before it all became very popular, Maharaji was always before his time. The girls studying in those schools, they get very choked up when they're interviewed. They get very choked up. They say, my mother and father couldn't afford my education, and I got this opportunity, and I'm forever thankful to Sri Maharaji. Many of these girls have become teachers. They come back as teachers in the same school. Maharaji loved his birthplace. Maharaji had a great love for Mangar. Maharaji had told his mother, in fact, Maharaji's mother, whom we refer to lovingly as Aji, grandmother, Bhagwati Maiya, we perform Aarti to Maharaji's mother also. So Maharaji had told Aji, rather she had told him that, you go traveling all over, but at holy time you must come back to Mangar. And Sri Maharaji said, I shall always come back. And he did. And Maharaji had said to all of us, I can never leave Mangar. Then sometimes he would say, I go here and there, but there's no place like Mangar. Mangar is Maharaji. Angan is the most beautiful place to me in Mangar. That Angan still exists, it's just the newer form. Sri Maharaji's physical presence was so powerful that even if you had your eyes closed and you were doing sadhana, sitting in the sadhana hall, you would know that he has entered the hall. There was an energy that would hit you in a loving way. It it would make itself be felt. You could not ignore it. And you would also know that, oh, I think Maharaji just left the hall. You would know it with your eyes closed. His physical presence was so powerful. I would say, and I do not exaggerate when I say this, that just looking at Sri Maharaji, you could fall in love with Radha and Krishna. He was the very embodiment of love for Radha and Krishna. He embodied that devotion. When Maharaji used to chant, he could not chant for very long. What I mean to say is that his voice would get choked. He couldn't chant properly for very long. A devotee confessed to me that he had thought that Maharaji probably he's not familiar with music because he doesn't seem to sing very well, he thought. It was only later that he realized that Maharaji was getting choked up, that he could not remain normal when he chanted the names of God. And that love that he felt, you could feel it also. You were in front of him, he was in front of you, and you could feel that love. It was tangible. It was tangible. You felt that you are now falling more and more in love with Radha and Krishna, just because of his physical presence. And Maharaji never made us feel that we were so ordinary, so small, and that he was so great. That was his greatness, that he did not pretend, or he didn't act like he was great. He did not act as he was great. He was so down to earth, to the point of sitting with us on the floor. Sometimes he would sit in a devotee's lap, reading that devotee's feelings, understanding that the devotee is thinking of Sri Maharaji as his child. He would sit very lovingly in the devotee's lap. That devotee may have been a child also, but Maharaji knew what everybody was thinking, and he would act accordingly. He would totally make us forget that he's the great Jagat Guru. Yes, we knew that, but outwardly he was just so friendly, so loving. And whenever Maharaji left Mangar, I remember Maharaji left Mangar for a day or so, and I totally remember, completely remember how I was feeling, and that's the way everybody in Mangar was feeling, and that is, oh, what do I do now? What do I do now? I didn't know. And everybody seemed to be in a daze like that. Everyone. It seemed like the whole life force had left. His presence was so powerful. And when Maharaji came back, he wanted to make up for the time that we didn't have with him. So Maharaji, in one single day, one time he went for a few days. Then when he came back, in one single day, he gave us so much apnapan, so much closeness, that it felt like many days, that Sri Maharaji has been here many days, but no, wait, he just came here today. But from what he gave us in that one day, it felt like he had been here, he had been back for many days. And he could do that. And everybody would check with each other. Everybody compared notes, and everyone had the same thing to say. Sri Maharaji called us all in his room. Now, in those days he could, because there weren't so many of us. He couldn't ask 600-700 people, come into my room. But he could tell us, it was 40-50 of us. Maharaji said, "Aa jao, kamre mein aao." And we just rushed into the room. All we would wait for is the invitation. And if you ever went into Maharaji's room, you would not leave. Maharaji would have to say, "Acha, jao." Then we would leave, not before that. Everybody would think, am I so foolish that I would leave this room? No. And we would sit there shamelessly. Maharaji would finally say after a long time, "Acha, jao." We would do pranam and leave. And Maharaji said that one day, "Aa jao." And we went and sat there, and he said, "Aur aage aa jao." Oh my goodness. We were sitting right beside his bed. And Maharaji just gave so much that day. And that was such an amazing day where many days had been squeezed into one. So many memories were created that day. So many experiences were given that day. Sri Maharaj Ji taught us how to live like humans. He taught us the value of time. He taught us the value of structuring your life. He taught us the value of getting up early in the morning. In Mangar, everybody slept very nicely because you didn't have too many hours to sleep. And Sri Maharaj Ji kept everyone busy. Everyone was very busy, and there was a method behind that. There was a reason behind that. And the reason, I think you know, is an idle mind is a devil's workshop. When you have free time, what are you going to do? Maharaj Ji कहते थे, खुराफात ही सोचेगा मन और क्या करेगा? The mind will think of all sorts of nonsense. What else will it do if I give you so much time? So Maharaj Ji kept us busy with our sevas. Hence the instruction, 10 ghante padha karo. In one day, study for 10 hours, he would say. He said to us. And whoever was doing whatever seva, everybody was doing seva. Somebody was running a little cottage industry to support the ashram. There were girls who were knitting sweaters. There were some who were sewing clothes. There were some who were taking care of the fields. They were farming. There were some who were taking care of the electrical matters. Everybody had seva. Some were in the kitchen. Everyone had something or the other to do. And I also have a vivid memory of my head hitting the pillow and me sleeping immediately. Because you had not slept for many hours and you were busy throughout the day, why would you have any problems sleeping? And Maharaj Ji would say, I don't understand why people can't sleep. I don't understand. He would say, I just think I am laying in the lap of Radharani, I'm laying my head in the lap of Radharani, and I go to sleep. I don't know why you can't sleep. Sri Maharaj Ji lived a very regimented life, very disciplined life, and you had to learn something by watching him. He would get up very early. He would not sleep that late. He didn't get much sleep at all. And his sleep, the amount of hours he slept, kept on decreasing. Maharaj Ji used to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Then he decided that's too late. Then it became 1 o'clock. Eventually it became midnight. So I was telling someone, Sri Maharaj Ji gets up at midnight, at 12 o'clock. And the gentleman said, well, I understand Maharaj Ji is elderly. And I said, what did you understand? That he gets up at noontime. No, he gets up at midnight. And he screamed, midnight? Who does that? No one else. There's only one who does that. That is Jagat Guru Uttam Shri Kripaluji Maharaj. Because he dances to his own tune. There's none like him. So only one does that. Sri Maharajji's meals were on exact times. He would eat at exact time. So you could tell what time it was because Maharajji is now eating his lunch, now his dinner. So you could, okay, I don't have a watch or a clock, but I know it's this time. So Maharajji taught us through his practical example. He didn't say so much that you should do this. He just did it. And we all saw him day in and day out. He did the same thing. And I'm not talking only now of the 2 years that I spent in Mangar, because I've spent so much more time after that. I've been going there every year, sometimes twice a year, since 1988. After I started preaching in 87, then I went back in 88. And since then, I've gone 30, 40 times, I'm sure. So I'm talking about not just those 2 years, but even beyond those 2 years, when I used to spend even 3 months at a time, very leisurely, until Sri Maharajji said one day, Seva nahi karni hai. No, okay, let's get an earlier ticket back. So there are so many memories of how I lived with my master. Those memories. I don't have a terrific memory, to tell you the truth. But I have vivid memories of so many moments with Sri Maharajji. And I think to myself, if I ever forget everything, it's all right. But let me not forget Sri Maharaj Ji. Let me not forget those precious moments. Once in, people say once in a blue moon, maybe once in millions of lifetimes, you get this opportunity where you have time, when you have an opportunity to spend time with such greatness that there are no words to express his greatness. The grace that Sri Maharaj Ji gave and still continues to give, there is no word for it. Sri Maharaj Ji has given so much, so much, so much, that there are no words in any language to describe what he gave. It was unbelievable how much time he gave to us. He would be sitting outside most of the time. Most of the time Sri Maharaj Ji was with us, teaching us, explaining things to us. When I was studying to be a preacher, and Sri Maharaj Ji would listen to my shloks, and he would point out the mistakes, and he did that for all 10 of us. So much patience Maharaj Ji had. Patiently he would listen to us. So by doing this, he taught us patience. That somewhere down the line you're going to think, Jagat Guru himself, Jagat Guruttam, he sat with me so patiently and he listened to me. For so many days he was listening, because there was so much to test, so much to correct. He was just listening, pointing out all the mistakes and saying, okay, this was well done, or whatever it was. He was doing that. And when I first started learning, and I'm very thankful to Banchari Didi because I had listened to her lectures, and I was in Mangar and she was also, and she said, Maharaji, please start her studies. Maharaji had never done that for anyone. Maharaji said, what do you mean start her off? Just, she will learn. No, Maharaji, please. And so Maharaji came into my room. My room means whatever room was empty, and I put my stuff in there. That was my room. We didn't have our rooms. There were hardly any rooms there. So Maharaji sat there on the bed, and I was at Maharaji's lotus feet, and there was a shlok. Maharaji pointed to that. He said, repeat after me. So I thought that looks easy. And Maharaji said, Priyojana. And I said, Priyojan. Maharaji said, no, Priyojana. And I thought, I don't know what Maharaji means. And I said, Priyojan. Maharaji said, Priyojana. And I said, oh, Priyojana. Yes. This is not Hindi. In Hindi, you would pronounce it Priyojan, but it's Sanskrit, so it's Priyojana. And then he said, Manuddishya, Manuddishya. And I said, Manuddishya, Manuddishya. When he said it hard like that, I said, Manuddishya, yes. Na pravartate. It took about 3-4 minutes for me to get one line right, pronunciation correct. And incredibly, Maharaji said, oh, she'll be fine in a day or two. And I thought, a day or two? I trust you, Maharaji. I'll be fine, with your grace. And Maharaji would instill so much confidence. Where I had zero confidence, he put so much confidence in me because I trusted him. His words are never wrong. They're always fruitful. If Sri Maharaj is saying, 2-3 din mein theek ho jayega, in a couple of days she'll be fine, I knew I'd be fine. Not because of me, but because of him, because of his greatness, because of his grace. He will make it all right. I have seen so many miracles. And I don't mean miracles like Maharaji produced something out of thin air, not like that. Miracles that are very meaningful. Sri Maharaji said to me in my very first visit, I will give you the seva of preaching, prachar ki seva dunga. And I thought, me? Well, maybe Maharaji is just joking. Or Maharaji is just trying to make me feel good. I don't know, but I don't think I can be preaching because I cannot even speak to one single person. I can't look at a person in the eye and talk. How can I talk to lots of people? I can never be a preacher, but I didn't use my intellect. When I finally went to Maharaj for 2 years to live there, in my mind I was going there forever. And I thought, perhaps Maharaji will change his mind and he will give me the seva of sweeping Mangar, because I love the cleaning seva. And maybe he will give me a jhadu, and he will give me a broom, and he'll say, sweep Mangar, and I can always stay with him. Maharaji had other plans, and he started me on my studying, and I stayed there for 2 years. So Maharaji created this miracle that someone who couldn't speak to a single person started teaching others. All you had to do was to have faith in Maharaji. All he looked for was faith. Do you have faith in me? I can do anything. You know, have we not heard stories of saints who made an animal speak? And it was as if Maharaji was saying, that was an animal. You're a human. I can do this for you. Only thing he looked for was faith. And he could do anything. He could move mountains. Sri Maharaji, his humility, his compassion for others is legendary. It's unheard of. A lot of people are compassionate in the world. There are many compassionate people, but his compassion was something else. He was compassionate even to those who considered themselves his enemies, who tried to oppose him, who tried to destroy the mission. Even to those people, Maharaji was extremely compassionate, very kind, very loving. Never did you hear Maharaji, even in his private room, never did you hear him speak against such people. Never. No one ever heard him say anything against anyone else. Even the people who wished him harm. He forgave everyone. And he did not tolerate it if someone went to him with a complaint about someone else. We all knew better than to do that. No one could go to Sri Maharaji with a complaint about someone else. There was a couple who would come regularly for Maharaji's darshan, and one day the wife seemed a little bit sad, so Sri Maharaji asked, "Kya hua? What happened?" And she got a little teary and she said something about her husband. Maharaji said, "Stop. Go no further." "But Maharaji, I told you, go no further. Have I not taught you that you should look for faults within yourself, not with anyone else?" "But Maharaji said, "I'm going to leave." Maharaji was sitting in the angan and he said, "I will go into my room." His room, the entrance to the room was right behind. "I will leave." It was only then that she stopped. It didn't matter how close you were to Maharaji, he didn't break his rules for anyone. You felt he was very close to you because he gave closeness, but there was no change in his philosophy for anyone. Once someone came with a complaint and said, "Maharaji, you know, this lady, she did this, she locked me in the room, and she does this all the time." Maharaji said, "Get out of Mangar. Pack up your things and get out of here." He would not tolerate that. His philosophy did not change. He was not different to different people. He was the same in his room with a handful of people as he was outside with multitudes. He was the same. And he was the same whether he was with a pauper or with a king. It did not matter. He treated everyone the same. There's a devotee who has shared with me that he and his family, his parents, his sister and himself, they would come from Delhi and they would come by train and they didn't have much money at all. And they would come to have Maharaji's darshan. And then when they got to Mangar, if Maharaji was there, they would stand at a distance because they were all sweaty and smelling. And Maharaji would go up to them and he would embrace them. And he said, "We felt so badly, we felt so embarrassed, but Maharaji was just embracing us. We couldn't do anything and we could only just cry." Maharaji embraced the villagers. They would be wearing rags sometimes. They would be looking very dirty. Sri Maharaji went beyond that. He looked beyond that. It was as if he didn't look at the body. He looked at the love in a person's heart. That is what he responded to. he was a giver. He gave and he gave and he gave. He gave to those who opposed him. There was a man living right next door to the ashram. And this man's sole objective seemed to be to give problems to the mission. And it was humorous that he had so many cases lodged against the organization, and nothing would come out of that. It was all silly, and he called himself a doctor plus a lawyer. So he was fighting these cases, and there was no case. Everyone knew that. Everyone knew that. Lawmakers knew that. Everyone knew that. But he was just, there was something inside of him that said, oppose. One day, I should say, this man had a heart attack and he died. Now, his family, his wife and his children, they were small. They didn't have to ask Maharajji for help. Maharajji sent the devotees there. See what they need, cook for them. They will have a bhandara, they will feed the villagers. So they don't have enough money, so let's do everything for them. Without them asking Sri Maharajji, Maharajji did everything for this man and his family. For so many years, the family had not entered the gate leading to Sri Maharajji's residence. And now, all of them were coming through the gate, they were bowing down to Maharajji, they became devotees. Maharajji never said anything against this man. And when this man died, Sri Maharajji did so much for his family. That was his nature. Bhurj taru sam sant kripala, parhit sahanit bipati bisala. Goswami Tulsidas Ji has said that a saint is like a bhurj taru. There's a tree that sheds everything it has. It just gives everything that it has. Saints are like that. They give everything they have. And that is what I have seen in Sri Maharajji. That he gave everything he had. A young man asked him, Maharajji, what are your activities throughout the day? Sri Maharajji said, I do whatever I need to do to take people to God. So whatever I need to do, I do it throughout the day. I have no other agenda. That was the only agenda of Jagatguru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj, to take everyone towards happiness, to take everyone towards God. He has given many gifts, many gifts to the world. Sri Maharajji had been giving them for many years. They were never publicized. Sri Maharajji had been helping the poor and the needy before, many years before the hospitals came into being. Sri Maharajji was doing so much for everyone before the schools came into being, before it became very big. Sri Maharajji was doing everything very secretly. And he taught us to give in secrecy. He taught us to give in secrecy and to give the most that you have. Sri Maharajji would know where the beggars were, because they knew when Maharajji was going to go for a walk in Mangar, and they would just line themselves up along the roadside. And Maharajji would always stop. He would get up, and because for convenience, Maharajji was in his wheelchair, for convenience sake, because he had to go a long way. And so he would get up out of his chair, and he would go to that man. He would ask, how are you? In the village dialect, and he would give the money. One day Maharajji was giving, in those days, the 1,000 rupee notes, the red notes. Maharajji was going to give that, and devotee said, Maharajji, no, please put that back in your pocket. I have 100 I can give you, to give him. And Maharajji was shocked. Maharajji said, why should I give 100 when I can give 1,000? What do most people in the world think? Why do you give 1,000 when I can give 100? Why give $1 when I can put 25 cents, right? Sri Maharajji taught us the opposite. If you can give 1,000, why are you giving 100? That was a powerful message. And Maharajji conveyed that in one sentence by asking this question, if I have 1,000, why should I give 100? He was a giver. He has given so many gifts, but the best gift Maharajji has given is a gift of knowledge. The gift of knowledge is the best gift, the greatest gift Maharaji has given. Through the knowledge that he imparted, Sri Maharaji made us all fall in love with God. We don't fall in love with Radha Krishna just like that. That someone would come along and say, hey, love God. And we say, okay then. Yes, I'm loving God. It doesn't work that way. We need to be given a lot of information. Why should I love God? Who is God? What connection do I have with Him? What relationship do I have? Maharaji answered all these questions. He took the knowledge of the scriptures, the very complicated knowledge of the scriptures that a worldly mind simply cannot understand, and he simplified it until it could not be simplified any further, and he gave it to us. He handed it to us. He fed that knowledge to us. He hand-fed us that knowledge. It could not be any clearer. It could not be any easier. So easy that a small child can understand it. And what I saw almost immediately after I went to have Maharaji's darshan for the very first time is that immense love that he hides inside. It is a nature of true lovers of God to hide their love. They don't like to publicize their love that they have for God. They don't go around proclaiming that they're great lovers of God. They contain that love. They have the power of Yoga Maya, which enables them to hide that unlimited love they have for God. Sri Maharaji always kept that love hidden. But it wasn't very long after I had Maharaji's first darshan that I was in the sadhana hall and I saw a wondrous scene. Sri Maharaji was sitting on his asan, on his seat, and all of a sudden he looked very different. And he slowly got up from his seat and he went like this, and he started singing, Hari Hari Bol, Bol Hari Bol. Never had I heard so much pain in anyone's voice. It was a different voice. It was a choked up voice. It was not Maharaji's regular voice. Maharaji got up and I didn't know what was going on. And someone told someone else, and they all, male devotees, formed a large circle around Maharaji, and Maharaji started to dance. Because they obviously knew what was coming. I did not know. I was witnessing this for the first time. And Maharaji danced. And how he danced. As if there had no bones in his body. That's how he danced. It was a beautiful thing to behold. Beautiful scene. Divine scene to behold. I was wondering why they have made a circle around Maharaji. And then I found out. They were trying to make sure that if Maharaji falls, they will catch him. But they didn't catch him. Maharaji fell, and there was an audible gasp heard throughout the hall. And Maharaji, as soon as he fell, and it was a very hard fall, it was a concrete floor, Maharaji got up suddenly, all of a sudden. As I said, as if there were no bones in his body. And he got up and he started dancing again. That masti, I had never seen that intoxication, that purity, that bhavavastha, the state of divine intoxication. And Sri Maharaji would sing and he danced and he cried and he laughed. And this is what the Bhagavad says. Vagadgada dravate yasya chittam rudatya bhikshnam hasati kvachich vilajya udgayati nityate cha mad bhakti yukto bhuvanam punati. In the Bhagavatam, Shri Krishna is telling Uddhav, oh Uddhav, a pure devotee of mine, sometimes he laughs, thinking me to be near him. Sometimes he cries, thinking I have gone away from him. Sometimes he starts singing loudly, throwing all precaution to the wind. Who's listening to me? Who will think what of me? He does not care. Sometimes he starts to dance. Oh Uddhav, such a great devotee of mine purifies the whole earth by his mere presence. Bhuvanam punati. He makes the entire world pure because he is living in it. Through his presence, he purifies everyone and everything. And that is what I witnessed in the sadhana hall in the 80s. And then when Maharajji would once again sit down on his seat, and then he became unconscious. I forgot to say this. He became unconscious. And then when he became conscious once again, he was sitting on his seat now, on his asan, and his eyes were wide. He's looking, where am I? Where am I? And then, as if embarrassed by what we had seen, embarrassed that he had let that love come out of him, he would talk about something. He may even talk about cricket at that time. And I would think, cricket? You were just in a state of bhava-avastha, Maharajji. You're trying to hide now. Now you are thinking, oh, they have seen me like this. Now my secret is out. Although it was no secret. You see, a saint hides his love for God inside, but as Goswami Tulsidas ji has said, Bair preeti nahi durahi duraye. You cannot hide love or hatred for very long. Even worldly love cannot be kept a secret for very long. It's not true love, it's not genuine love, but it cannot be kept a secret. If you ask a woman who became a widow 2 years ago, 3 years, 5 years prior, you mention her husband's name and there'll be tears in her eyes. Because bair preeti nahi durahi durai. Love and hatred cannot be kept a secret for very long. So how can divine love be kept a secret? How long can one hold that love inside? Yes, with Yogamaya, a saint hides that love, but mercifully, I believe that Yogamaya itself says, let them see what you're all about. And that love comes gushing out of him. Just like the steam in a pressure cooker comes gushing out. It comes swooshing out. There's a loud sound. It comes out with force. Or if you stop water from flowing with a dam, then you give access to the water to flow, then it flows with great speed. There's a lot of force. And so that love within the saint's heart, it comes out of him with great force. And then that saint laughs, sometimes he cries, sometimes he sings, sometimes he dances, he loses consciousness also. In Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Rupa Goswami ji has said, Stambha svedotha romancha swarabhedotha vepathu Vaivarnyamashru pralaya ityashtau satvika smrita. He has said there are certain symptoms of love, 8 symptoms of love, and they are stambh. Sometimes that devotee becomes absolutely still, as if he is a stambh, meaning a pillar. Sved, there's a lot of perspiration on his body. He perspires profusely. Romancha, his body hair rise. He gets goosebumps on his skin. Swarabhed, there is a difference in his voice. His voice is not as it usually is. Vepathu, his body trembles. Vaivarnya, his complexion becomes pale. Ashru, he cries profusely. And pralaya, he becomes unconscious. And we have seen Sri Maharajji in that state. The scriptures say, they tell us how to recognize a saint. That you can infer, you can think, you can guess that this one is a saint because of this, because you're getting your questions answered, because he is making you feel detached from the world, this and that. But then they say, well, we will tell you directly what a proof of divinity is. And that is stambha svedotha romancha and vaggadgada dravate yasya chittam. That when the saint, he is going through, he is displaying these symptoms, then you know without a doubt that he is a divine personality. And these symptoms of divine love have not been displayed by many saints. The only other one that I can think of is Gauranga Mahaprabhu. That we hear about his state of ecstasy, just like this. And I must share with you, when I first saw Sri Maharaji the very first time in Mangar, I was in Sri Maharaji's room, and the room became bathed in very gentle white light. And Sri Maharaji, who was 5'11", that was his height, but he seemed like he was touching the ceiling. And Sri Maharaji was not very fair of color, but he seemed very fair of color. And in that split second, I knew, this is Gauranga Mahaprabhu. He is Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And my mind went back to when I had asked Banchari Didi. She had a necklace, a kanti I should say, and there was a pendant, and there was a personality who was going like this, and I only knew of Gauranga Mahaprabhu who went like this, Hari Hari Bol, Bol Hari Bol. And I said, Didi, is that Gauranga Mahaprabhu? She said, no. I said, who is that? She said, my guru. I said, oh, that's funny, he looks just like Mahaprabhuji. And she had smiled at that time. So now, fast forward, and now I'm seeing Sri Maharaji as Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Maharaji would give these experiences only when someone needed them. Only when he felt it was proper, it was the right time to give that experience. But he would never admit that he had given that experience, because a saint does not want you to believe in him because of the miracles he performs. Sri Maharaji never performed those other miracles, like displaying something, creating something out of thin air, manifesting something out of thin air, or doing whatever. Whenever there were these miracles, it was for the good of the devotees. And then if someone asked him, Maharaji, you did this, he would feign ignorance and he would make a big joke out of it. And then the person saying this would think, why did I even ask Maharaji? If someone said, Maharaji, you are a saint, you are Maharaji, you are God, Maharaji would say to everyone, this one, touch his feet, because he is truly great. He has understood a saint, he has recognized a saint, that means he's a saint. Touch his feet, everyone. And that poor fellow would think, why? Why did I do this? Why did I say this? Maharaji was very fond of touching the devotees' feet. He would touch the devotees' feet. There was so much humility. And he had a very self-deprecating sense of humor. He was so great that there were no words for his greatness, but when he talked about himself, he would make fun of himself. He said, people call me Jagat Guru, and I am a Jagat Guru, because the whole world is my Guru. Jagat world is my Guru, so I'm a Jagat Guru. He never even wanted to hear anyone praise him. Maharaji would grow very restless if anyone was praising him, especially when he was being introduced in some new area, in some temple outside of the ashram. He would go to many places and people would have these heartfelt feelings that they knew, they understood that this great one has come. So their words would be very, very flowery, and they would try to communicate with everyone what they were experiencing. And Sri Maharaji would look at his watch and, when are you going to finish talking about me? He did not want to hear himself being praised. When he was being praised, he was normal. When he was being criticized, he was normal. He was who he was. He was who he was. And no one's opinion was going to change him. If you thought that he was God on earth, Sri Maharaji said, believe what you believe. And if you thought that he was just the opposite, then believe what you believe. Sri Maharaji would say, I am who I am. Sri Maharaji would be asked, Maharaji, will you come to this town, this city? Maharaji would say, मैं तो सूखा पत्ता हूँ, जहाँ हवा ले जाए वहाँ चला जाऊँगा. Maharaji would say, I am a dry leaf, wherever the wind takes me, I shall go. The wind, what was that wind? A devotee's pure love. That was the wind. When he saw that a devotee was wanting his association, the devotee was waiting so anxiously for him, Maharaji would go there. Maharaji would go to that place. even though it defied all logic. Maharaj, how could Maharaj be in Kanpur and Lucknow, both places at one time? He did that. And I say to you that even today, when Sri Maharaj is not available to us in his physical form, he goes where the wind blows him. Wherever the wind of a devotee's love, whenever that wind beckons, Sri Maharaj goes there. Maharaj had promised us that he would never leave us. And he always kept his promise, always. If we have faith in him, and if we hold on to his lotus feet, if we hold on to his teachings, if we hold on to that love we have for him, he will never leave. He will have to come again. He will come again. Sri Maharaj had promised that. He never spoke about himself in the first person. He would say it in the third person. If you have faith in your guru, and that guru leaves you, and you're stuck halfway, you have not attained God realization, have faith that your guru will never leave you stranded. He will always find you. So we are living with that faith that Sri Maharaj will find us. And we will find him. He will come our way. What will happen to you when you see him next time? You will think, I know him. I know him. I don't know why. I don't know how, but I know him. His words are so powerful, I cannot forget them. They echo in my brain. They have made a place in my heart. But why do I feel so drawn towards him? Just like so many have felt in this lifetime. Why do I feel like I know him? I've never met him. I've never been in this part of the world. How do I know him? In the same way, the next time, our heart will say, I know him. And we will go rushing to his lotus feet. And Sri Maharaj will scoop us up in his loving arms. And then he'll say, where were you? He will ask, where were you? I waited so long. I was waiting so long for you. And then we will feel, oh yes, I became separated from him, and now I have come home. His arms, his lotus feet, that is our home. All we need to do is to have faith in his words, faith in his promise, and he will definitely find us. Maharaj's words are always true. He never spoke a superfluous word. He never spoke a word that did not come true. We are so grateful to even know of Jagat Guru Uttam Shri Kripaluji Maharaj. His greatness has no limits. We cannot ever even cannot understand or describe his greatness. All we feel is eternal gratitude for being in our lives. बोलिए जगत गुरु तम श्री कृपालु जी महाराज की जय। हमारे प्यारे प्यारे गुरुदेव की जय। श्री भक्ति धाम मनगढ़ की जय। जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे।